Good morning and happy Tuesday. This week I'm going to talk about basic grooming because I find a lot of people have questions about it. They say, I don't know how often I'm supposed to brush or bathe or something like that. And I thought I would put together what I know and give you some information on it. So the first thing I want to talk about is shampoo, because a lot of people, either their pets react to the shampoo, or their dogs hate baths, or there's all kinds of difficulty when it comes to keeping them clean. If your dog is anything like Kaya, she loves mud and she has a dual coat, which makes keeping her smelling really nice difficult sometimes. Morning, Monica. And I have a recipe for you for shampoo that's really easy. It lasts a really long time. The recipe I made, I quadrupled it, which is just one of the ingredients is water. There's only 5 ingredients, and it lasted almost 2 years. So it's really simple. And all of these recipes and information are also on my website. I'll post the link for the page underneath. But the first ingredient is liquid Castile soap, and it's basically an all-natural soap. It comes in all kinds of different scents, but I like to go with the plain one because sometimes pets can react to certain scents, or people in our house. For example, one of the smells is lavender, and I know not everybody loves that scent, but you can always add an essential oil to change the scent of it after. The second ingredient is apple cider vinegar, again, just to balance the acidity. The third is olive oil to get that nice, shiny, healthy coat, water, and then your essential oil of choice. So I will post the recipe in the comments, just in case you don't know, but again, I quadrupled the recipe. It lasted 2 years. And the Castile soap you can get at most health food stores. Healthy Planet has it. The first time I made it, I ordered it off of well.ca, but super easy to get. The bottles are about this big, and you really don't need that much. When I shampoo Kai, I probably use about this much shampoo just because she has a dual coat. But when it comes to how often you should bathe your pet, morning April, it really depends on their type of coat and the species, obviously. If you have a cat, they do a lot of self-grooming, so they don't need baths as often, but once or twice a year should be enough, unless your cat gets into something like oil or soot, because that really attaches itself to the skin. It also helps stop parasites from attaching to their skin and decreases the shedding. With dogs, it depends on their coat, but typically it's every 1 to 2 months. If the dog stays inside, that number is obviously less, but for dogs that spend a lot of time outside or really like mud, it's usually more often. Kaya's about every 2 months or so, depending if we notice she starts to smell or she has a certain escapade in a giant mud puddle, then it might be a little sooner. But if your dog hates baths, and this was Kaya when she was younger, so we had to get a little creative, they do have dry shampoo, which is kind of like a powder that you shake and you can rub into their coat that helps clean the skin and the roots of the hair so that you don't have to submit them to the whole bathing process. It's something you can kind of just rub in. You can use it on humans too. I know a lot of people that do. If they're really busy, sometimes they dry shampoo midweek so that their hair stays nice and healthy. But you can also use waterless shampoo, which we use sometimes. It's usually a spray. So you spray it on, you massage it into the hair, and then you towel it off. And they get that nice fresh scent without the water, because a lot of dogs, that's where the trauma comes from, and makes them smell nice. Which sometimes if we're having a family gathering or something like that, we do a quick waterless shampoo on her just to make her smell nice and fresh. So that's bathing. Number 2 is brushes, and I get a lot of questions about these because there are so many different coat types that sometimes it's hard to know what type of brush you need. And for dogs, there are actually 5 different types of brushes. So I have 3 of them here in front of me, but I don't obviously have all of them because Kai's coat doesn't require it. But the first and most common is what's called a slicker brush, and that's what this one is. So you notice the bristles stick out. The different versions of slicker brushes just have longer or shorter pins. So if your dog has a thicker coat, you need longer pins. And you want to get one of the right length because otherwise it's going to scratch the skin or not reach the skin at all, which is important. Typically, they're for medium to long-haired dogs or curly-haired dogs. So breeds like the Golden Retriever, Cocker Spaniel, etc. It can be helpful to remove mats, but usually that's more for this, which is what's called a rake brush. If they get mats or burrs or anything like that, that's what this one's for. That's really all we use this one for. It still has the tag on it and everything. But usually when the burrs get really bad, this is what we use on Kaya. The bristle brushes are pretty common. They look like human hair brushes. Not that exciting, but they're usually for shorter coated dogs. So dogs like pugs, Boston Terriers, breeds like that. There is an undercoat brush, which is heavier than the other ones, and it looks like this. And it's actually, you're not supposed to use it on dual coated dogs, but essentially if they're going through their seasonal shed and you're trying to help the skin kind of loosen all the fluff at once so you don't just get a month of extra cleaning, that's typically what that one's for. It's good for huskies, but don't use it all the time because it does pull some of the undercoat out. For cats, the brushes are mostly the same. Of course, you have the mat type of brush, which is you put a glove on your hand and it has the bristles on the hand and you can brush them so it looks like petting, because I find cats tend to be more particular about grooming, but that's a really easy way to groom a cat. They also have furminators and shedding combs and things like that, but because I don't have a cat, I don't have any cat brushes to show you. Moving on. Nails. This is another one I noticed because a lot of people pay someone to cut their pet's nails because their pet hates it so much. And again, Kaya is not super fond of having her nails trimmed, but it's something we're working on. I usually give her Rescue Remedy before I do it, which, for those who don't know, is a flower essence combination that helps to calm and relax the animal beforehand, so that when we get to the actual nail trimming and I pull out her nail trimmers, she's in a more relaxed state, so she doesn't attribute these to being terrified. Because usually if you pull something out, like a lot of dogs, if you say the word bath, they run and hide. But I want her to have a positive experience with it. So that's what I'm trying to set up for her. If your dog or cat doesn't like the clippers, you can get what's called a Dremel. And it's kind of like a sandpaper attached to a grinder. And it grinds the nails down softly so there's less chance of you clipping the quick of the nail. And there is a diagram on my website which you can go see, but essentially it shows you at what angle to cut the nails, because you don't want to cut it vertically because the quick is at an angle. So you have to cut it little bits at a time moving up the nail. But if your pet has translucent nails, it's easier because you can see where the quick is. You do not want to cut it because it will start bleeding, and it takes sometimes a couple minutes for it to stop. But if your pet's nails are way too long, you have to cut it back to the quick, and the quick will slowly grow back if you keep the nails short. So if your pet's nails are continuously too long, it will help them slowly move it back if you cut their nails more regularly, because then the quick will slowly grow back, which is nice. For dogs, this is typically at least once a month. If you don't do it that often, the nails will get long enough to click on the floor. But for cats, this is usually every 2 weeks, because unless they're they have a cat tree or a scratch post or something like that, it's usually about 2 weeks. Again, I find cats are more picky about having their nails trimmed. I know some people take them to the vet just to get their nails trimmed because they're afraid to do it themselves. And I have volunteered at 2 vet clinics. I know what that's like. It's not a fun experience, but the Dremel is a good substitute if your pet doesn't like the clicking of these. But you can get silent Dremels, which are handier because they can be quite loud sometimes. Moving on to ears. And I know, Monica, this was one of your questions. Dr. Karen Becker has a really good ear cleaning recipe, and she also has additives you can put in if the ears have certain conditions. So for things like ear infections, yeast infections, mites in the ear, she has an additive you can put into the recipe that makes it even better for them. So again, the recipe only has 3 ingredients. The first is witch hazel, which is, if you haven't heard of it, it's kind of like a general all-natural type of, kind of like a disinfectant. You use it on cuts and scrapes and things like that. Hydrogen peroxide is the second ingredient, and apple cider vinegar is the last ingredient. So you mix those 3 together, and that's your base ear cleaner. If you want to do ear infections, you can put colloidal silver in it, which is typically in a dropper. For yeasty ears, you want to add oil of oregano. For irritated ears, a lavender essential oil is very soothing for them. But again, you don't want to put the drops directly in the ear canal. Typically, if you put it on something like a cotton pad, like a makeup remover type pad, without anything on it, obviously, just the plain cotton pads, you can wipe their ear. So it's better than putting it directly in their ear. Again, for ear mites, you want to add neem oil, which I've actually never seen it, but her video is really helpful if you haven't heard of those things. She'll show you exactly what the containers look like. But you mix it and you pour it on the cotton pads and store it, and then once in a while you take cotton pad out and you wipe their ears. But again, it depends. Floppy-eared pets tend to get ear infections more often because it's a moist environment when their ears are floppy. So Kaya does have floppy ears, but they're not really long, they're just a little floppy. So once in a while, you can also use baby wipes if they're safe and all natural type thing, which sometimes is easier for some people because they have some sitting around. You just don't stick your ear too far in the canal. There's also a diagram on my website about what their ear canals are shaped like, so you don't stick your finger in too far. But usually with Kaya, we use the all-natural baby wipes, and I just put 2 fingers under the baby wipe, and I just wipe around her ear, and then the what's it called? The point of the ear on the inside, because that's usually where the dirt gets. Once in a while, she'll get a bug bite or something in there, and wiping it once in a while with something like coconut oil or colloidal silver helps get rid of the itch, because then she sticks her whole foot in your ear trying to scratch it, which not exactly safe for her. But that's the basics on grooming. I did one about teeth not that long ago, so if you want to learn about brushing teeth and things like that, that video is back there. But if you have any other questions about basic grooming and you want to read more or see the pictures, I will post the link for that page on my website in the comments so you can see it. Another thing about peg grooming is that most people do it once and then think they're good for a while. But personally, sometimes I forget. I'm like, I don't know when Kaya had her last bath. So I made a little like printout chart thing, and I wrote down the basic grooming, and then I track month to month when was the last time that I did something. So it looks like this. And it has bath, haircut, ears, nails, teeth, the poop clean in the backyard, and spraying the yard. So I know recently, I didn't remember when I last gave Kaya a bath or a haircut. So I look back and I'm going, okay, it was the end of June that she had her last bath. So soon she'll be due for a bath, but she's definitely due for a haircut. So it comes in handy because we're not all perfect at remembering things. And if you have to flip back week to week, you might miss it. So it's something easy. You can just print out an ad somewhere, put it on a bulletin board in your kitchen or something like that, or inside the cupboard door where your pet's food is, and it makes it easier to remember. Or even something like a vet visit. When was the last time they got a checkup? That kind of thing. Because I find every year I have to call and say, when was Kaya's last annual checkup? Because I don't remember. So those are my tips. You're welcome, Monica. If you have any other video topic suggestions, feel free to send me. I've just put together most of my content for August, and I'm excited about the content. There is a small 5-day challenge the second week of August, so get really pumped for that. It's going to be really easy, so participation shouldn't be that hard. but it's going to be really interesting and I'm looking forward to it. So have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you next week.